You know what's funny? Morfonica, because the deck just became an Eevee in a single booster. As you guys might know, Morfonica is getting a brand new support in DC BTO7 and there are 5 different playstyles together with it. What the? But regardless, today I'm gonna be here to talk about each of the playstyle and its plus and minus as much as possible. So I apologize if this is gonna be one of the longer videos.
Who cares?
So what does this Forte playstyle do? Well, if you are an Amane fan and you are a big fan of Magnolia, this will be something that you really like, because the main boss for the Forte archetype is exactly just Magnolia with extra stat.
Hey yo, what the f—
With Dissonance of Imaginary World Forte, Mashiro Kurata. This unit inherit all of the auto and act ability of the incomplete metamorphosis Mashiro Kurata if you have exactly 1 copy of this unit in your soul. And then the cost of the act ability of this unit can be paid with put a trigger unit from hand into soul. Then she only have 1 other ability, where at the beginning of your battle phase, if all of your unit have Forte in their different card names and you have Kyomo merry-go-round on your Rega circle until end of turn, all of your unit can attack from back row, and if your opponent Vanguard is greater or greater, they get additional 5k, and your personal right also increase your back row units. So let's break the skill down layer by layer, starting off with the very first skill. Well, we just see something similar recently with Glory Maelstrom, but a little bit more restrictive, but it's not exactly a big deal as we'll get to why later. But in general, the fact that you can alternate the cost from Counterblast 1 to put 1 trigger unit from hand to soul is a really great help, especially considering Nanami prefer you to have triggers in the soul to trigger her revive, or with the Forte version of her, draw a card. And on top of that, the second skill is essentially a configuration of multiple attack support you can think of with 0 and the power increase and attack back row from the Elder skill as well. For a card that does suddenly change the playstyle, it does work pretty damn well. I mean, you essentially buff 15k to your entire back row, which generally is really good amount, as it more or less reached the Magnolia mass amount. But the problem I'm seeing with this card is the fact that unlike the original version of the other Mashiro you do run, playing a music now costs 1 card in your hand, which can get very annoying over time if the game got dragged on and you won't have enough shield in your hand to actually play the thing off. The second thing that I feel is a little bit annoying is the fact that they could have made the alternate cost applied to her auto ability as well. This means that you're gonna be focusing on having as many Mashiro in your hand as possible, and that include the brand green triggers. So for those who do want to play Morfonica, clench your anus, because you're gonna be using a lot of money to spend on essentially a brick card, as we have Kyomo merry-go-round, which is a brand new order specifically for Mashiro. This music order has 2 skills, where when put on Rega circle, you can search your deck or drop for up to 1 card with Forte in its name and call it to Rega circle. If your Vanguard is incomplete metamorphosis Mashiro Kurata, search it for up to 1 Dissonance of Imaginary World Forte Mashiro Kurata and write it as stand. If you search the deck, shuffle the deck. And auto on Vanguard circle, when the Dissonance of Imaginary World Forte Mashiro Kurata on your Vanguard circle attack, you can put a card with Mashiro Kurata in its card name from your hand into soul, and that unit get triple drive until end of turn. This is why I'm saying you're gonna need a lot of Mashiro in your hand, because of the fact that you're gonna be using 1 to get a triple drive consistently with this order. But even without that skill, I would consider the first part of the skill very good. I mean, it's just a straight up filter, call out 1 Forte unit from your deck and actually revolt it back if you already run out of those in your deck. And this is the reason why I say you don't have to worry about Dissonance constant skill, because this card guaranteed you to go into Dissonance immediately. So there is a plus to it, as unlike the original version of Morfonica, you do have to wait for 1 turn to run into it. This one at least give you a chance to just stuck as the Dissonance for the rest of the game without worrying too much. So I would say the good point and the bad point of the new form of Mashiro and her music does balance each other out. But what about the rest of the members? Well, we start off with my favorite character from the Morfonica group, but that doesn't bloom Forte, Tsukushi Futaba. This card has 2 skills, where when placed on Rega circle, choose a Morfonica with a different card name from this unit from your draw, put it to hand, and this unit get 5k till end of turn. And then auto in your back row once per turn, when this unit attack a greater or greater unit, if your other unit in power was increased by a trigger effect this turn, this unit get additional 10k. What I like about this card is that not only you allowed to cycle back back a lot of cards from your drop, allowing you to get the cost needed for Kilmo merry-go-round. Also, the power increase is really nice touch, because that means that you don't have to be too worried about your other rare card not getting powered, or she herself, because she just gained that increment instantly. So yeah, I do like this card a lot, but she by far not the strongest of the bunch, because the grade 2s are just very crazy. But before that, let's talk about the other grade 1 that we have, and that's Loneliness for being gifted Forte, Nanami Hiromachi. This unit can intercept from back row if you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Forte in its card name, and yeah, that is pretty much it. It just get intercept and intercept from back row. Then auto on card once per turn. When this unit attack, you can Soul Blast 1 with trigger unit or counter blast 1, draw a card, and this unit get plus 5k until end of turn. Nothing too crazy. I mean, her original does better job at supporting the deck because of the revive, but the fact that she does play better into Dissonance playstyle is not bad as well. And to be fair, early game draw will always benefit anyone, so great start of the support. Then we have the grade 2s, which are Toko and of course Rui. Starting off with Toko with one's own footprint Forte, Toko Kirikaya. This unit has 2 skills, where if you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Forte in its card name and you do not have a record with the same card name as this unit, you can EB3 to call this card from drop to record circle, and if your opponent Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, this unit also get additional 5k. Then auto on front low left record circle. Once per turn, when this unit attack, if you have grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Forte in its card name, so blast 1 reveal a trigger from your hand, this unit get 10k until end of turn. Very simple, very solid, but what I really like the most about this card is the fact that unlike the original Toko, where you have to reveal a trigger to get additional power, this unit just straight up gain up to 15k, and 10 out of 15k that she's getting, you can gain it regardless of going first or second, which is great for decks like Forte, which does want to go first to get the best benefit of 5 attacks in general. But all the Forte records hold no candle in my opinion to the MVP of the deck, and that's Butterfly Dream Forte Rui Yashio. This card has 2 skills, where when placed on record circle, if you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Forte in its name, Energy Blast 3 search your deck for up to 1 Morfonica card, discard it, and shuffle the deck. Then in front row right record circle, once per turn when this unit attack, if you have grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Forte in its name, and your opponent Vanguard is grade 3 or greater as well, and your drop has 1 or more different music, until end of turn, this unit get 5k, and if your drop has 3 or more different music, you can Soul Blast 1 to gain 10k instead of 5. This is insane. Why? Because what they just give to Morfonica, it's just a straight up Foolish Burial or Shadow Cloak, but specifically to Morfonica cards. This allows for a better trigger chance on top of allowing you to set up all the pieces that you needed, especially with the music card, as once you reach a grade 3, you most likely gonna be using one main music card in general. And she's also the reason why you can run lesser Forte Toko, because you can just mill Toko and use the Toko own skill to call it back, allowing you to essentially build the board much faster. The power, the skill wise is not bad, but the fact that it is great lock is a little bit weird, at least in my opinion. But come on, you have a Foolish Burial in your own archetype, I'm not complaining. Overall, I would say Forte Mashiro playstyle does reminded us of Magnolia, obviously because Amane also voiced Megumi, who do use Magnolia in the show. So the similarity in playstyle is very obvious, though I'm not too sure about how the person in question feels about the effects. Regardless, let's move on to the next section of this video, and that's another playstyle that was given to Morfonica in the same booster, and the easiest way I'm gonna put it is training to Morfonica.
Brother,
The reason why I'm saying this is because it has a lot of similarities, though a lot of things has been very streamlined for this archetype in general. As we can see with the order, with a unit card, I guess, that kind of facilitate everything together. Conflicts hidden within each card. I'm not sure if that's a song name or not, do leave in the comments below if that's the case. This card has 4 skills, 3 of which can only be activated by the first skill, because when this unit is placed by writing from a grade 2 Morfonica, search your deck, hand or draw for up to 1 grade 2 or less normal unit with Forte in its card name, write it as stand, and if you wrote a card, put this card into order zone, and if you search a deck, shuffle it. So essentially, this is just help you to set up and turn your deck into essentially a training 2 playstyle, where it has a constant that your Vanguard lose all of its original ability and become a grade 3 13k with critical 1 and twin drive. And during your turn, you also cannot write. Some of you guys might be wondering, then what about Persona Write? Do not worry. As the second skill at the beginning of your right phase, put a card with the same card name as this card from hand into your soul. Trigger Persona Write. And then auto on order zone at the beginning of your main phase, search your deck or draw for up to 1 Morfonica Morfonica music and play it. If you search a deck, shuffle it. Nothing too crazy. I mean, it's just making sure that if you chose to run this playstyle, you are able to play music more or less very consistently. But is a playstyle good? Well, we have to look into each of the music assigned for different members. So let's start off with my favorite and unfortunately the least powerful, Esorano Clover, the unique music for Futaba. This card has 3 skills, where the first skill is more or less common among the other 3 training tool music as well, where when placed on Rega Circle, search your deck order for up to 1 Dissonance Mashiro, call it to Rega Circle, and until end of turn, that unit get boost and plus 5k. If you choose to search a deck, shuffle the deck at the end of the turn, retire that unit. Then constant, where all of your Morfonica Rega gets additional 5k until end of turn. Then auto Rega Circle, when your Vanguard attack, you can counterblast 1 to discard 1 Futaba from your hand. Choose a card with Tsukushi Futaba in this card name from your drop, call it to Rega Circle, and until end of turn, that unit can attack from the back row. In all fairness, this card does have the best amount of searchability thanks to both of the Futaba being essentially the searcher themselves. And the power increment for all the Rega is nice, especially considering the earlier part of the game. But the biggest issue with this order, and in my honest opinion, all the music training tool, is the fact that you have to leave the music on the Rega Circle to benefit from the effect. And this is essentially unboostable Rearguard, so because of that, your Vanguard attack will 80% of the time be extremely weak, with the exception of one. And speaking of other skill, the reason why I'm saying Futaba has the weakest music among the 4 is because of the fact that you have to counterblast 1 and discard Futaba to get an additional attack. Yes, you technically can just use the same Futaba that you discarded to call it back, but the problem here is that you have to essentially pay 2 counterblasts to get the full benefit of Futaba in general, which is a little bit dumb. And to top it off, original Futaba search capability is only available for Mashiro in particular, and with the deck that runs so little Mashiro, this is useless. So that means that to get Futaba consistently, you just have to pray that you draw into it, or the grade 2 Mashiro help you to fetch into it. So a lot of setup need to be done, but you can't done it consistently enough without costing a lot of resource. So that's why I'm saying Esorano Clover is easily the weakest forte music among the 5 we have seen.
My disappointment is immeasurable.
And it can be safe to say the rest are not bad, but it is not that great either. Like, it just makes the playstyle playable. As you can see with, in my opinion, the most interesting one, and that is Watashi Machikai Sakashi, which is Nanami Unix music, where it had the same first order, with the only other ability is when your Vanguard attack, counterblast 1, and all of your Rega without Nanami Hojimaji, Hiromaji in that card's name get constant on Vanguard. Vanguard gets trigger effect of this unit until your turn, then you can discard 1 Nanami Hiromaji from its card name from your hand. Look at top 4 cards of your deck, choose 2 cards from among them, put them into your hand, and put the rest to top or bottom of the deck in any order. This is why I like this card, because not only this is, in my opinion, the strongest Vanguard attack out of any build of Morfonica, but it has a way to guarantee the resource because of its additional skill. Like, because of the fact that you can do essentially Monaganda skill, this making sure that all the constant that you are giving to all other rearguards is able to trigger very consistently. And the funny take about this card is that if you pull a front trigger while this card ability is active, that's a plus 30k to your Vanguard circle, because 10 from the front trigger, 10 each from other 2 front row, making it 30k specifically for Vanguard, allowing it to more or less beat through any guard value except for PG itself. And that is where the problem lies, because this deck is 3 attack. This means that if you are playing against deck that can filter very quickly or can fetch PG very easily, this deck just explode. And I think that's the thing that kind of keep it balanced in general. Next up, we have what a lot of people will consider to be the most powerful quote-unquote training tool playstyle music, and that is Mugen Reverberate, Toko's unique music. This card has the same first skill as any of the other training tool one, but the second skill is when Vanguard attack, counterblast 1, choose one of your Morfonica rearguard and stand it. If your opponent Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, you may discard this 1 Toko Kirigaya from your hand, choose one of your Morfonica record, stand it, choose one of your Vanguard, and it get 10k and critical +1 until end of turn. This card is better than the rest of the training tool in a sense that you will always get at least one restand, but you can choose to discard another one to get a full benefit of 5 attack that the original Mashiro has. Nothing too much to talk about the skill itself, but the thing about Toko version of the deck is that you do have to run a little bit more Toko units in your deck, so because of that you might compromise the search ability a little bit because you have to run lesser of the recycler like Futabas and Nanami, but other than that she's arguably one of the best, if only her second restand is not locked behind opponent grades.
You were so close to perfect.
But what I would consider to be the best out of the 4 training tool, at least in my opinion, is the last one, and that's of course the Rui one with facing Mirage. It's the same first skill obviously, and its second skill is when your Vanguard attack, if your drop has one or more different music, counter +1, choose one of your Vanguard, it gets 5k until end of turn. If your drop has 2 or more different music, at the end of that battle, discard one Rui from hand, stand that unit until end of turn, it get drive -1, and if your drop has 5 or more different music, of your Morfonica regard get additional 5k. What I like about this card more is the fact that it just essentially 4 tier, and the fact that you are forcing to run more Rui in your deck is actually a benefit in this deck because this allows you to filter your deck out a lot faster using both the original Rui and also the current version of the Rui, which allowing you to have much more compressed deck. But of course, being an overlord playstyle unit also means that you have to check the trigger to get benefit, though fortunately your regard will still get benefit regardless because of that 5k boost, provided you manage to set up by at least turn 3 or 4. Overall, I do have to say each playstyle of the new Mashiro is pretty interesting, while still reminiscent of many of the playstyle we have encountered over the past few years. But it is far from perfect, as I'm gonna be talking about the pros and cons for each version of the deck. Just for your info, I'm just gonna cram all the training tools together because I feel each of them more or less has a similar weakness. Anyway, let's start off with Forte Mashiro first, and Forte Mashiro is essentially a Magnolia that has a much better board building thanks to a much better quality record. This allows the deck to essentially hit on early very well. Meanwhile, if you start Persona riding, you're also hitting it at a Magnolia mass number, which is something that not many decks can actually benefit from. On top of that, the deck also has the really good filter thanks to Kyomo merry-go-round. Consistently search out your deck for many Forte units that you needed at the time of activation. And of course, the guarantee setup into Dissonance is always great regardless. The problem with this playstyle of Mashiro is a similar issue that not only the Magnolia has, but also the weakness of the original Morfonica also come into play as well, as the deck does struggle on the hand quite a little bit if you fail to get your setup done early on. On top of that, Morfonica nature of requiring trigger to trigger certain effects, your shield value are just being compromised even further. Even though this deck did get an alternate cost, it's still very restrictive because of the alternate cost is kinda shit. And then we move into the training to playstyle, where the main benefit is just that until you ride into a specific one, the opponent won't see it coming what playstyle you play. And most of them do have a good skill in general, which allow you to rush very early on. The problem with all this is that all of the Morfonica initial support does has a focus on Mashiro specifically, and because of that, they are not able to utilize any of the search capability. And if you decided to use certain member music, you do have to consider the ratio of the certain unit in your deck to making sure that you can trigger the music full skill consistently. And because of that, certain deck might have even less consistency more so than the one that can run a little bit more recursion unit. And the ultimate weakness that all of the Morfonica deck has, and this is common, and I leave this for the last because this will be very cancer, especially in the Western, you need Morfonica crits. Like all of these brand new skill require you to have a specific member unit in your hand to trigger all of the effects. And what other cards aside from the unit that you run normally in your deck itself does have that kind of requirement? Bang dim crits. So if you want to run Morfonica, be very prepared to spend a lot of money, unless those are generally cheap in Western, which I am not aware. So but yeah, that is Forte archetype, the extension that I feel honestly nobody needs, but this seems to be there to promote their brand new album. But what do you guys think? Do leave down in the comments below, and yeah, that's all I have for today. Take care of yourself, don't forget to clap that sub and become a member for some cool perks, and this is Mac Megane signing out.